Hey y'all, so this is a more different type of video, but I basically want to tell y'all the story about how I know that God is real, how I know that God is living, and my first encounter with the power of God. And I know that it couldn't be nobody but God. So like just a little background, when I was 14, the state of Virginia took me from my grandmother, and I was in juvenile detention. I was supposed to be in there for like 3 days, and they ended up keeping me in there for 2 days. So I can go to a foster home or a group home or whatever. But some family members came and got custody of me, and one of the family members was really involved in church, right? And I did not believe in God at all. I mean, you could just tell by the way I was living life, I didn't believe in God. I was 14, I was super wild, I didn't care about nothing. So when living with them, they would take me to church and everything, and I would literally sit outside of the church, like sit on top of their car, or if I went inside the church because I was on periods and I had to be with adults. I was so bad. And I'm not gonna be ashamed of this story, but like it's almost embarrassing to talk about because like I was out of control. However, if I was forced to go inside the church, then like I was super disrespectful, I was rude, I didn't want to have nothing to do with the church. And you know, without the proper knowledge and the lack of wisdom and understanding, and just lacking my mind, honestly, I had no idea what I was missing, because there's nothing wrong with church at all. Even if you're not a believer, it's still so much motivation and positivity in the church. However, so I did all that when I was like 14. Here I am, probably 15, 16. I think I was 15. I'm in the courtroom. Like, the family I was living with, my cousins, they could not take care of me. I just was so rebellious and whatever. So they ended up giving up custody. My best friend, her and her mom wanted to get custody of me. Her mom was thinking about, like, my guardian ad litem was explaining to her, like, you can go through foster care, you can do that, you could collect a check for her because you're a single mom, you need it, da-da-da-da-da. And she is a believer, like a full-blown spiritual church woman. Like she just made God seem like the coolest person in the world, right? So, and even when we were younger, when I was always go over there, she was like, every time we leave out the house, every time we do something and we're not in her presence, she would ask me and my best friend, who's with you? And my best friend would always be like, God. And I wouldn't answer, and she would like, Brittany, who's with you? And I was like, God. How much? All the time? Like, you know, until you got accustomed to it. But not even accustomed, until you started believing it. That's what it really was, until you started believing it. And anyways, so back to the story. So fast forward, they're telling her she has to fill out this, she has to do this, fill out all this paperwork. And my friend's mom is like, you know, if this is the will of God, basically she was saying, Father, prove to her that you got her and that you love her and that you're here for her, right? And she used to always tell me that if it's God's will, it'll get done. I'm not going to the courts to sign no paper. I'm not going to no classes for foster. I'm not doing none of that. If God wants you here with us, then he will make it. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, lady, you are crazy. Like, I'm ready to get sent to a foster home, like, with people I don't even know. Like, and because my thought, the way I seen love was so perverted, like, I got so mad. And I don't even want to say mad. I just felt like I was not worth anything. Like, you keep trying to say it's God, but you like really just don't want me to live with you. That's how I honestly felt. But I was dealing with a woman who knew God, who knew her God, who knew the power of God. And she believed in it, and she stood on it, and she just was a woman of faith. And I didn't understand that at all. I had no concept of that at all. So I'm at the courts, you know, and her and my best friend are nowhere to be found. And I'm like, the foster lady is there, and I told the foster lady, like, look, you collect the check, I'm gonna stay out the way of the law, but I'm not staying here with you. Like, I don't know you, I done been through too much. Like, I'm not staying here with you, but I'm gonna stay out the way of the law and go to school so you won't get in trouble. But shorty, I'm not staying here. And she was just sitting there with, you know, in the corner, and I was like, hey girl, being my bad, rude self. So then we enter into the courtroom. You know, they're giving up, my cousins and stuff are giving up custody. The judge is asking questions. And then my best friend and her mom walk into the courtroom, right? And I think the judge asked her one question. The judge was saying, basically he wanted clarification because her name was on some documents. And he said, you know, is this a custody hearing to transfer legal guardianship from the family I was with to my best friend's mom? And she said, yes, sir. And then some man with a briefcase comes up to the judge, a whole bunch of paperwork he has, and he's saying that, you know, my friend's mom has signed all the paperwork. She's went to classes, she's done her training, she's, you know, she's ready to go. There's nothing, everything has been taken care of on her end. Everything's good. And I'm just sitting there like, yes, yes, yes. Like, I'm going to be with people I know. I don't want to be lost in the system and stuff like that. So then when the judge is like, he basically was like, all right, then, you know, he took what the lawyer said, and he was like, okay, well, everything's a go. Hit his gavel, and we dismissed out the courtroom. And let me tell you, when we left out the courtroom, my best friend's mom looked at me and she was like, who was that man? And I was like, who? And she was like, the man that said he had all the paperwork. And I was like, I don't know. So she started asking other members of my family, and no one knows who this man was. Like, we're all sitting around looking clueless, like, what are you talking about? Who is he? You the one that got all the paper. Like, he got your paperwork. Your signature's on all his paperwork. And she looked at me and she said, and she was like, Brittany, I didn't sign not one piece of paper. I've never signed paper. She's like, when we got here, we didn't even know how to get to the court building. Like, she was like, someone that wasn't supposed to tell us where your court hearing is because you are a minor turned around and went out their way to let us know how to find you. She was like, I didn't fill anything out. And everyone's still there sitting there like, well, who was that? And oh my gosh, is it okay? Like, what? And then she just stared at me and she told me, she said, girl, don't you ever say there's not a God ever in your life. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she had, like, her eyes started watering. And she's a mom, you hear me? Like, soft, soothing, nurturer. Like, she's the most amazing woman I've ever met. And just, she's everyone's mom for real. Like, if you've met her, then you will know exactly what I'm talking about. But when she looked at me and her eyes, I can't, like I said, I read eyes. Like, I can see it all in her eyes. She was dead serious. And I didn't believe in God at the time. And she was telling me, like, God has something for you. God has his hand on your life. I don't know that man, but I know one thing. I know the power of God. And I told God, if this is his will, he will make it happen. And baby girl, he just made it happen. So don't you ever say there's not a God. And I'm sitting there like, I'm getting teary-eyed thinking about it because I know God now. So to think I didn't know that at the time is just like crazy because I was missing out on so much. And when I thought I was alone, I really wasn't alone. But yes, and I looked at my best friend and my best friend was just like, God loves you, you know, thank God. And I'm like, thank God for what? Like, y'all are tripping. But once, like, the car ride back, after I left with him in the car ride back, she just kept looking in the rear view and she was like, Brittany, I swear you better get on your knees and you better thank God. Like, you better really be thankful because a miracle just happened on your behalf and you don't even know it. And she was telling me, like, everything that's happened in my life is like, finding God is the way out. And I was just like, what? So when I started to pursue God and go to church and accept the Lord into my life, I was like, whoa, that was God. So when people be like, if it had not been for God, I'm thinking, if it had not been for God, I would be lost into a freaking horrible system that does not love me, that does not love girls. I'd probably be sold somewhere. Like, I don't play with that government stuff, and I would have been lost in the system away from everyone I know. If it had not been for God, every story you hear, I be seeing stuff on TV, I be hearing stories or just seeing people's like testimonies and stuff, and a lot of the kids that grew up in foster homes and stuff, I just be like, thank God you saved me from that. Thank God you put my best friend in my life for a reason. Thank God you made the woman that her mom is a woman of God, that she's a woman of stature, like she is an amazing, strong black woman. Thank God you equipped her with the tools to raise me, a lost young woman who just was completely off the chain. Like, thank God you gave me what I needed, even when I did not believe in you. That is the beauty about the love of God. Like, even when we doubt God, even when we don't want to believe as God, even when we think we've done it ourselves, when we think we can do everything by ourselves, like, he'll straighten that up quick. Like, no, sweetheart, this is me, this is all me. And if it was not for me, where would you be at? And that's why I am forever grateful, and I am forever thankful for her, and I am forever invested into the love of God, because he showed up, and he still shows up, and he shows up right on time. He's never late. Even when I think he's late, he's never late. This man, my testimony is so crazy, and it's all because of the power of God. Like, every situation just shows, like, when you look at the situations and you see the part that God's played in it, like, he's come through too many times for me to ever be like, yo, you're not real, you don't exist. Like, that will never come out of my mouth, because I've seen it, and that's real, that's super real. He saved me from so much, and he's healed me from a lot, because I was completely lost. I was a lost girl running into the arms of anyone who said they loved me. Completely lost. Like, thank God you saved me. Thank God you saved me. Thank God you love me. Thank God you have raised me. You have given me the freaking you never disappoint. Thank God for the promises of God. Thank God for my health. I have 4 limbs. I wake up every day breathing. I can read and write. I barely even went to school and I can read and write. People talk to me and don't even know my testimony, and when I explain to them some of the things I've endured, they be like, what? You? Yes, ma'am, me. But if it had not been for the man upstairs, like, I wouldn't be the person I am today. Like, my whole childhood until I was 17, I was locked up. I'm a sergeant in corrections right now, on the opposite side. Like, if it is not the power of God saving your life, then you tripping. If you don't know God, you tripping. You missing out on so much. And if you don't chase after that relationship, you're losing. You're missing out on so much, because it's such a beautiful life to live when you have a relationship with God. And it's kind of funny, because he's funny. He's funny. You'd be like, dang, that's funny. God, you're funny. But I'm gone.